I think, selected from a royal line. But most of the times, that is what we do. Hello.
Hi, Doc.
So now let's look at the difference between generalizations and facts. We said not all statements are generalizations. So if we say we had an independence 57, that is a fact, it's not a generalization. But as I said, to say that Ghanaians are peace-loving people is a generalization because it is not every Ghanaian that is peace-loving, that is law-abiding. We have Ghanaians that are lawless, right? So more comprehensively, generalizations occur when we attempt to understand facts or create connections franked by data, object, or events. Records of the past through concept and convey them to others through concepts. So yes, we have facts. Facts do not change. The dates that we had independence, the people that help us attain independence, some physical evidence that are there. So facts do not change, but generalizations do change. Hello?
Hi.
Hello, Doc.
Generalizations change with time. So yes, in the 18th century, the general assumption is that Ashantis are warlike because they were the ones creating problems in the Gold Coast. But from them to date, if you are to tabulate the number of intra and then inter-ethnic conflicts that have occurred in Ghana, Ashantis will come nowhere near other tribes or other ethnic groupings. So the generalization that was true in the 18th century is not true now. Hello?
Hi. Hello.
So why must we generalize? Why should a historian generalize? We say in selection is necessary since facts are too several. At times, when you interview people, you get different variations of the same thing. That at times it's difficult to know which is which. So you look at the common trend and then we generalize. Voltarians are beautiful. Is it a fact or a generalization?
Generalization.
It's a generalization because it's not every Voltarian. And you see, I didn't say handsome. I said what? Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Meaning that the Voltarians, I'm only referring to the women. And the women are beautiful. Huh? I have my senior colleague in the department. He says if he's reincarnated, he will marry a Voltarian because they are submissive.
Not all of them.
Generalization.
It's a generalization. To him, Fantis and Ashanti women are troublesome. But Voltarians and Notness are very submissive. And then when you have, is that almost true?
Generalization.
It's a generalization. So those are generalizations. Right? So because the facts are several, generally we say that Voltarians are beautiful because the first beauty contest that was organized in Ghana, right, was won by Voltarian.
Oh, okay.
And that lady, her number was 9. That is why we refer to Voltarians as number 9.
Number 9.
Okay. Did you get it?
Yeah.
So the mindset that Voltarians are beautiful. And then you can also notice this, that usually they are fair colored, right? And we, the rest of us, we are very dark. So they are beautiful because anything fairer, you say about there. No.
Don't continue.
Don't continue. Don't call it.
But no,
Yeah.
mostly they say exams are dark.
Yes.
My good,
Yes.
is it true?
It's a
It's a
generalization.
generalization.
Okay.
Yes, but most
Yes,
of
but most of the
people that we
people that we encounter that are in Zuma
are very
are
dark,
very dark.
right? So we
Right. So we generalize that.
There's an echo. I don't know where it's coming from. Hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So it's a
It's a
generalization.
generalization.
Alberta, your hand is up.
Doc, please, I wanted to apologize for what happened earlier. Unfortunately for me, I was in the kitchen, so I was using a headset. I couldn't go back to the phone and unmute myself on top. That's why I couldn't.
No problem.
Hey,
So these
kitchen.
things that we do. Okay, now I say, when person is also kitchen. Obi can do is here actually. Obi be you. So when we say things that do not apply to the entire group of people, we say it's a generalization, right? And I'm saying that we generalize because the facts are many, and then we cannot go to all of them. We cannot represent all of them, and therefore we tend to represent the views of the majority. And since we have neglected some people, regardless of how few they might be, there's what we present is a generalization. Is it clear?
Yes, Doc.
Yes, Doc.
Yes, Doc.
Okay.
Okay.
The second is
The second is that
Nima, can you mute your mic? Thank you.
okay. I think it's okay now. So when we move beyond, we say one, the facts are many, and therefore we can't represent everybody. So how do we generalize? We say even a selection of facts, they are underlying assumptions and principles that are considered. The facts to consider, the ones to ignore. There is certain assumptions that we make. Oh, we want to know about, let's say, succession patterns of, let's say, the Akomus. Who should we talk to? Should we talk to people who are elders of the community? Or we can talk to anybody in the community? The best answer is that we have to talk to elders of the community. Why? Because we think that the elders have in-depth knowledge about the rights and customs of the Akomus. Is it every elder that knows tradition?
Oh, no.
No.
No. So there may even be younger people who may be well informed or educated about the customs of the Akomus than some elders. But the general assumption is that the elders in the community are the depositories of the cultures of that community. And therefore, they are the ones we should talk to. Hello? And the people that we might talk to might influence the outcome that we might eventually come up with. Is that okay? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Hello.
So, secondly, we say gathered facts have to be arranged and grouped. Both involves explanations, causations, motivations, and impact. The information that we get, we need to arrange them according to time, according to how they happen, according to the source. So these are oral sources. These are documentary sources. These are, let's say, weight on all of these sorts. We play all these goes with assumptions because you want to understand people's motive. The person that I'm interviewing, what does he gain if he misconstrued the facts? If he doesn't gain anything, chances are that he might tell the truth. But if he's a beneficiary, chances are that he may or she may misrepresent the facts. We are all in this country when Apostle Kojosafo's children went to court to have their father will read.
Please.
Hello. Yes. Hello. Yes. Yes. I've been following that story.
To some extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Akufo and his supporters. Yes, I read it.
Hello,
Bro.
the echo is coming from the end. The echo. You are getting feedback.
What I saw now. Okay. Yeah, the group, okay. 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 Once you know number, you might have that. That's the brief. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, sorry about that. So, if you listen to, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, please. Hello.
Yeah, if you listen to the account, right, the Akunfuna faction, their interpretation of what was read in court is different from the Adjua faction. Right? And then if you listen to Kwame Nkrumah Tikesiye, Peace FM, when he also read the thing verbatim on radio, you get a different perception. So you find out that the Akunfuna faction will say that the leadership struggle has been brought to an end because the rule says that he has left, or the person who is supposed to execute Kojosafo's will is Akunfuna, and he is the heir or the head of his family, and that if in the unlikely event that he's not there, a male heir should succeed him. Hello. If you listen to the Adjua faction, it says Kojosafo appointed a leader for his nuclear family and not that of the church. Hello. So as far as they are concerned, that is still in contention. Then you go and listen to Kwame Nkrumah Tikesiye. And when he also read the thing, it's as if the matter of who leads the church has been decided. Because even his mortal remains all the rites and rituals, what is supposed to be done to the body, he has entrusted to the son. I confront to do. Right? So they all read the same will, or they all have the same access to the same will. But the generalization, the interpretation that they give to what is written is different. Hello?
Hello.
And why? Because of how the interest that they have in the man's estate, that is influencing the conclusion that they all arrive at. So, stated differently, analysis is vital to history as a discipline. Even recorded facts are already the product of generalization in the minds of the person who recorded them. So there is some assumption. Based on those assumptions, you write. That is why at times when you read something, how you may understand it might be different from how another person will understand it, but you all read the same thing. Why? Because you both have different assumptions or generalizations in your mind prior to reading the document. Is that okay?
Yes, Doc.
Hello? So we say in case, as soon as we go beyond names and dates and mere counts, like this happened 4 times, this happened 8 times, this happened this thing, then we generalize. So without generalization, we can't make comparisons. Because on what basis are you comparing Ghana to Nigeria? What is Nigeria's population? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
What is Nigeria's population?
They are about 380 million.
And then we are how many?
31 million.
82.
So on what basis are you comparing Ghana to Nigeria?
No, you cannot compare Ghana to Nigeria.
How much 10 and then 1? So you cannot even compare their GDP and our GDP. The challenges that they face there based on their population and the challenges that we face here based on our population, there is no basis for comparison. But we think that they are universal standards. When we say gross domestic product, we are dividing how much they generate per their population. So the numbers does not matter. Are you getting the basis for the comparison?
Yes, Doc.
Hello?
Yes, Doc. Yes, Doc.
Yes.
Doc, we are here.
But you see, there are certain contests. We have mingled as a people. There is nothing like a pure blood anywhere. Yafra, Fantis marrying Voltarians marrying Zima, and all those things. But in other African countries, it's not like that. They keep to their ethnic groupings. So if they fight, they don't have any similarities. But if we fight, we are killing our own children and grandchildren and wives and girlfriends. So we would argue and as if this country is going to burn, and the following day you find the same people chatting and laughing as if nothing happened previously. We have a system. I said the boarding house school system is one of the best decisions that we've taken as a country. Even though some people disagree, they think that we should do day. I disagree. The boarding school system, let us bond. You get to know people from various parts of Ghana, their temperament. Some of your prejudice that you had about those tribes, when you go to school and meet those people, realize that your parents lied to you. They say, hey, Kofu Omu Edro fucking. Wadam for now, fi extreme, fi vote, and only they realize that all those fears were unfounded. Right? They were mere generalizations. So we say no intricate analysis or interpretations or even narration is possible without generalization. Nor is it possible for a historian to delve deeper than surface phenomenon in understanding events and institutions without generalization. So a lot of the things that we say may not necessarily, and the point is may not necessarily, not in all cases, supported by all the facts. In research, we call something data saturation. When you interview people and you do not come up with any fresh evidence, you say you have reached data saturation in qualitative research. That is when you stop your sampling and then you go and do your analysis, because the next person will not give you any new insight, any new information. So when you do 3, 4, 5 times and you don't get any new theme, you say you have reached data saturation and you stop. Now let's look at some advantages of generalization. We say 1, it helps in organizing bulky and numerous data into a coherent, representable manner. Without generalization, as I said, the facts may be many, and then we cannot follow all the trails. So at some point, we have to stop. And we generalize so that we can make meaning out of the facts that we have. Hello?
Hi, Doc.
So if you go to Elmina, they feed the dead. They cook and go and put the food on the cemetery or on the, we call it the sepulchre or the tombstone of the dead. So if you want to understand their philosophy, their way of thinking about the state of the dead, right? Must you necessarily interview every individual in Elmina? No, you can't. So you select a few, understand their belief system, and then you present that as the belief system of the people of Elmina. Why is it that people are hungry on the street, they can't find food to eat? And then you cook food, sumptuous food, and go and put it on the tombstone of a dead person, whom you know will not eat anyway. Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Right? So we want to make sense of that numerous data. You have to generalize. And then generalization also helps to improve the historian's perception, the perceptions about issues. At times, it's trained or it is fine-tuned through generalization. I say by augmenting his skills to make more intricate interconnections from facts or data. So as I said, the fact will not speak for themselves, right? If we discover, if we are right, and we all, let's say heads, like the, let's say the whole part, when we tend to find a lot of them in a particular location, we generalize that the people were predominantly farmers. Why? Because we would date the iron and see when those irons were casted and used. And those irons, based on their shapes, are not weapons for war or for battle, but for agricultural purposes. So we conclude that that is the breadbasket of Ghana. That is where agriculture began in Ghana. Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Doc, you are listening.
And then we say that it helps the historian to draw inferences and set up chains of causations, like what I've just done, right? And enable him to analyze, to interpret, to explain these data. Why? Because history is involved in asking the question of who, what, when, how, where, and why. And we can't have direct answers from these, right? For a question of who, we would, when, these are supported by facts. But how and why questions are often answered with generalizations. Is that okay? Any question?
Yes, Doc.
Any question to this point?
No, please.
Okay. So you can look at the other generalizations that we talk. Now, are there some criticism from what we just said? Do you think that generalization is generally good for the study of history, or it would introduce some challenges to the study of history? Hello? I've argued that the
Hello.
historian cannot do away with generalizations, right? But do you see any, let's say, challenges with generalization in history?
Yes, yes, Doc. Sometimes the generalization, you bit on a small part to generalize it, and it may not be true. So
Yes.
we have some problem there. So not all the generalizations are true. So you can have problem, can
No.
meet problem, or can get problem on the way.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Okay, Doc. So I think the fact history cannot do away with generalization doesn't mean it won't encounter any problem. There
Okay.
might be of biases, although some will conclude that there's a general vesting from a fact, but from their own perspective, it could be a bias assumption or something like that.
Okay. Okay. So, yes, because of generalization, that is why there are a lot of contradictions, counter findings in history, because they may not flow out from the facts, right? The fact that you saw me holding a knife does not necessarily mean that I murdered somebody, even if the blood is stained with blood. It could be animal blood. It could be my own blood. But if you see me just holding a dagger, and the dagger is stained from blood, you conclude that I have murdered somebody. You may be wrong. Hello? You may
Hi,
be wrong.
Doc.
Hello.
So we say that if we want to generalize, the generalization should be grounded in the facts. Right? Don't make just generalization does not connote or mean what's the name? Oh, the word is just gone. It's like making unsubstantiated allegations of somebody. You make assumptions about people that are not supported by the fact. Forgotten the term that I wanted to just use. Right. It should be supported by the fact. So the generalization should flow from the fact. That is one. I would say, as already pointed out, the facts are often made facts through generalization. And then every unique event is unique. and therefore possesses an individuality of its own. At times, it is not plausible to be comparing two events because what occasioned the event might be entirely different. I listened to some presentation by former President Thabo Mbeki, and he says that the first time there was this xenophobic attack in South Africa, when they investigated around 2005, when they investigated, it had nothing to do with the hatred for other Africans. In fact, it was sponsored and fueled by Zimbabweans. There was going to be an election there, and they knew that, the opposition party knew that usually people that have traveled out of the country are people that are against the ruling party. So they wanted a way to get them back to come and vote against Mugabe. So they sponsored South Africans to sack Zimbabweans so that they will come with vehicles to come and fetch them as if they are doing them any good. And then when they will go and cast their vote, and majority of the vote will go for the opposition. But in the media, it was reported as South Africans hating other Africans. However, he could not say same to the one that happened this year because he says that it has to be investigated. So even the same incident, the underlying cause might be different from time to time. Is that okay? Hello?
Yes, Doc. Doc, we are here.
So I'll say according to this, society is an atomistic and follows no uniformity. What it means is that every society is different, every individual is different. And therefore, at times making assumptions about people, about events, trying to compare might be difficult. That is why at times generalization is not possible, because then we have to look at issues on a case-by-case basis. Hello?
Hi, Doc.
But in any case, if we want to say something is unique, we have already made a comparison. Don't you agree?
We agree.
You say don't compare because this is unique. Then you have identified some characteristics of the thing that is different from another. That is why you are saying that is unique. You are making some comparisons, right? But we cannot grab the uniqueness unless we compare. So yes, that is why we say that generalization is inevitable. It is inseparable from the work of the historian. So several historians put up forward generalization as an assertion and considered it proven when it has to be proven. So what it means is that they will first make the generalization and then they will support the generalization with the facts. So generalizations are inadequately tested. And then several are based on oversimplification of data and relationship and causality. For instance, to say that some other countries are undergoing nuclear coups, so another country would also experience, it is as that we often, when the Saharan countries were involved in a coup, we said that it was likely that Ghana too might experience a coup. And then you have people like Dr. Nyahuta Makulu saying that without the petition of the president by 80 of his own cabinet ministers, the country would have been plunged into some civil disobedience. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But the point is that we are engulfed, or we are in the midst of a sub-region which was engulfed in coup d'etats. And the fear is that we might also be plunged into a coup d'etat. But the causes of the coup d'etat might be different from country to country. Even though we can generalize and say that, yes, abuse of power, winner takes all, economic hardships, curtailing of people's rights may be the underlying forces. In our case, we were fighting a finance minister who we felt was making the state out of the loans that the country was contracting. And we felt that the country was being ruled by family and friends. So we wanted a change. We didn't want a change of head of state. We just wanted a change in the finance management of the finances of the country. And when the president was able to navigate his way through, some say that we avoided a coup d'etat. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Yeah. So those are some of the challenges against generalizations. And there is a response. We say generalizations should be made explicit so that they can be openly debated. So when you are teaching and you are making a generalization, you should separate the facts from the generalization the author is making, and then you compare the two before you come to your own conclusion. And then again, people say that generalization is not wrong, but the stage or the type of generalization that is done becomes the problem. When, as in the sample size, when the sample size is low, the generalization might not reflect the case. When the generalization is at the middle, then we say it might represent, or it might represent the case. But if it's wide, if the sample is wide, or sample size is wide, and is reflective of the entire population, and you say your generalization might represent the people or the case that you are trying to project. So the degree of validity or tentativeness or truth of a generalization should be validated. Historians should revise how to create generalizations and learn how to improve one's capability to create interconnections which are better or more authentic and useful. The problem of generalization stems from historical explanation. To this point, any question? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Any question?
No, please.
Hey, are you sure? No, please.
Doc, Ekoyi.
Okay. So
Doc,
to sum up on your life, yes, hello.
so please, can you say generalization and facts, they go hand in hand?
Yes, the facts should support the generalization that you are making. Right.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, it will just be an assumption.
A mere
Or-
assumption.
Yes, without any basis.
Okay.
So generalization should be supported by the
With
facts.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much.
And then when we move beyond mentioning people's name, their date of birth, and then mere, let's say, occurrences of events, we are moving to the realms of generalization. It is generalization that helps us to understand the how and the why of history. And then when, and then the what is often supported by the facts. Is that okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we say generalization guides us. They enable us to doubt facts as they appear, as they have been described by contemporaries or later writers. They suggest new possible understanding of old facts. They bring out fresh points and views for confirmation, refutation, further development, further qualifications of existing views. So you see, the fact may be the fact, but the interpretation that people bring to it, the generalizations that they make about the fact, is what will cause others to doubt, to question what the historian is trying to put across. And then once you go and research on your own, you might come up with some different perspective, or you might confirm what has been done. And that is the beauty of history. So I've mentioned earlier, I talked about explanations. What is the role of explanations also in history? Hello? What is the role of explanation in history? Bear in mind the definition that you gave me. It brings clarity to an issue. What
Yes,
else?
sir.
Oh, hello.
Doc,
To
you
clear
can also
doubts.
say
To clear doubts.
It clears doubt.
you can also say it brings the why and how history works, like gives reasons.
It gives reasons to history. Okay, last one. Last one.
Doc, please, you
Hello.
can also say it makes it clear for it
It
makes
makes
it
it clear. It
real
makes
and
it so.
easier to understand history.
Okay. So interpretation, we say, is the lifeblood of history. Interpretation is the lifeblood of history. So this is because, as I keep saying, the facts cannot speak for themselves, right? And without interpretation, the fact will be dead. I've seen the golden stool, but what does it mean? It's the interpretation that will tell me that the golden stool is the embodiment of the soul of the Ashanti. It is where the occupant of the stool derived its power. In fact, without the golden stool, there is no Ashanti. What I've done is to give you the connections between the Ashanti people and then the stool. But if you see the stool there, without a historian telling you or an elder giving you this information, you will see it as an ordinary stool. But once we begin to explain, then you see the stool in a different limelight or a different perspective. Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Hello,
So
Doc.
in our context, when we say a marriage, it is not a union between two people. In our context, it is a union between two families. That is why at times, either party, both the man and the woman, may not be physically present, but the marriage can be contracted for them. Have you seen something like that before?
Yes, yes, please.
The man and the woman might even be like outside, but the two families will go and then sit down and they will contract a marriage. And that marriage is valid. In other jurisdictions, that is not possible. But in our context, it is possible. So if you go and then people are married, ask, where is the groom? They say he's in UK. Where is the bride? He's in US. Say, so how are they getting married? He said the brother and sister from both sides will stand in for them. To a foreigner, that is nonsense. Because the person have to, let's say, declare love to each other and commit to the marriage institution before they can say they are married. And it has to be done in front of a magistrate or an officer of the court. We contract our marriages in the presence of representative of both families. Have you accompanied a friend to a wedding that when you go and ask where are the relatives and nobody show up and they sack you people before? Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Doc.
Boys, I'm call you this. Say, papa wahi. Be man papa wahi. Esi oni ha na we den osi ne dwuma mini. Move your
No, exactly.
Yes. Because in our jurisdiction, it has to be relatives, blood relatives. Why? Because it is a marriage between two families. So we say historical explanation means using historical reasoning, synthesis. You are pulling information from different sources, different angles to explain a point. Using interpretation, the index of historical literacy, that is your ability to pull information from different sources to explain the past. So historical understanding is incomplete without explanation. The role of historical explanation, therefore, is to turn knowledge into what? Understanding. Is there a difference between knowledge and understanding? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Is there any difference between knowledge and understanding?
Yes, please.
What's the difference? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
Yeah, what's the difference between knowledge and understanding?
Doc, knowledge is about having information or facts or definition about something that you can memorize.
Yeah.
But understanding, this is making sense of the information, how you make sense of the information you've acquired.
Okay, making sense of the
How you can
information.
explain it in your own words.
Yes, your ability to relate the knowledge to the lived experience of your listener. Right? So yes, you've read this somewhere. You've come across this fact. But what does it mean to you? Explain it so that even a child will be able to understand, appreciate your point of view. That is explanation. And it's different from knowledge. Knowledge often called, we recall knowledge. But we demonstrate, right, by giving example. But trying to relate the problem to our lived experiences. That's why Sophia said that in your own understanding, using your own words to clarify a concept or an issue that you have come across. That is explanation. So when it comes to explanation in history, there are two key ideologies. We have the positive ideology and then the idealist approach to explanations. When we say positivism, we have done research method. What is positivism? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
You've done research methods.
Yes, please.
Huh? Who taught you research methods?
Doc,
Hello?
Professor, the one who taught us organs of, forgotten his name.
Organs of what?
Kufuor, Professor
Professor
Kufuor.
what?
Kufuor.
Before Kwati.
Yes, Kufuor. He taught us research in political science.
Okay. So what is positivism?
Doc, please, I can say it relates to something that is real.
Something that is real, something that is factual.
Factual, yeah, something. That's what I can say.
Then what about idealism? Hey, me too.
Doc, that's
Idealism.
the opposite of positivism.
Hey.
So fire.
Hey. In that for I say, when we do about
But
that,
it's true. Doc, is it not
it
true?
is true.
Eh.
So it's the opposite, yes. So let's pick the first one. We have scholars like Carl and Humphrey, Gardner. These are known positivists as far as history is concerned. What is their opinion? Their opinion is that historical explanation is a subset of scientific explanation and subsequently relies upon causal law from which we can deduce the occurrences of historical events. So what they are saying here is that those that are termed as positivist historians, they see history as a science. And because it's a science, history should be backed by evidence. And it's from the evidence that we'll be able to explain causation, that this thing was caused by this. And before that, we can say that something was caused by another. We should be able to eliminate chance and then say that this is a cause based on available evidence. Nkrumah died of, they say, either the exposure to the ballistic weapons, the many bombs, assassination attempts on his life caused his eventual death. Others will say that he died out of a broken heart because he had invested all his life in Ghana. And when he was overthrown, his spirit was crushed. Which is which? A positivist will go with the forensics. Let us exhume the body. Let us do an autopsy. Let us establish a cause of death. And once the autopsy suggests a cause of death, that is the cause of death, as far as the positivists are concerned. Is that okay? So they see history more or less like a science. And they maintain that a historian is concerned with the description of a particular event of the past. And therefore, historians have to search for general laws which might govern these events. So it is not about you assuming. It is not about making general comments or assumptions, but the assumptions should be pinned or should be determined by the facts. And the facts should always speak for themselves. So to them, general laws form an indispensable instrument of historical research and thus ascribe to the assumptions that historical occurrences could be subsumed under explanation in terms of universal laws. What we are saying is that when we want to find out that something causes something, it should not be limited to a particular area. That assumption, that conclusion should be applicable in other cases. That will say that they are general laws. We know that when we are dealing with science, we are dealing with precision and exactness. We give a margin of, let's say, -2, -3. So we say this thing is 99.999% sure. You can't do that in history. So in history, what we do is that we deal with what we tell as general laws. We look at certain occurrences from different places, and then we study the causes. And the causes oftentimes might be same or might be true irrespective of people, location, or race. We've done nature of history, so I don't want to be like I'm repeating myself. If a ruler oppresses the citizenry will ultimately revolt. Everywhere under the sun is the same. When you oppress people to the point of their breaking point, they will revolt against the system. And often it is deadly. And the result is what we term as a coup d'etat. Right? When there are no laws, a country cannot develop, whether in Africa, in Asia, or America. If you do not enforce your laws, you will not develop. These are general laws. You cannot go and test them in the lab. Hello?
Hi.
So this is what we term as the covering law model of explanation. It presupposes that an event is related to another set of events. That is, to explain an event is to show how it is connected to another. An event is explained when it is brought under a general law which does not admit or accept any exception. That's why I'm saying that irrespective of place, gender, or race, the assumption may hold true. The general law is established through empirical evidence or observations. This introduced the idea of hypothesis, which means that the historian should be guided by a hypothesis of a general character, not like when you are doing your research methods. This hypothesis is general because it is born out of experience, observations, or some assumptions. So we can look at how a leader is governing, and we say that if the man does not change his tactics, he is likely to be assassinated. He is likely to be removed from office. Right? And then if, true to the assumption, if the man does not change his style, he will be assassinated or he will be removed from office. Because human beings do not like certain things. Even in the installation of chiefs, often the chief is told, and now if you become a drunkard, if you are a womanizer, if you fight in public, if you misconduct yourself in such a manner, we would remove you. And in most Akan states, if a chief indulges in any of these habits that the people detest, the chief will be removed. That is a general law. Hello?
Hi.
But you see, there might be one or few exceptions where the chief might be a womanizer, but it's a development-oriented chief. And therefore, the people might not like his humanizing character, but would compensate that with the development that he is doing, and therefore keep him in power. That's why we say that it is not exact like happens in the sciences. But generally, if a chief is a womanizer, if a chief abuses his authority, he will be removed from office. Any question? Hello?
Okay, Doc. So with the positivist assumption, does it in any way reflect an objectivity of something, of an information or a history, something like that?
Yes. So
Yes.
the positivists are those that believe in absolute objectivity in history, because they say history is a science. Do you get that point? So they are doing history just like it happens in sciences. That is why they are finding causality, cause. I bet I've answered you.
Doc, please, it's not that clear. Please, can you go
What
over
I mean
to
is
me,
that
please?
we say we are doing explanation, and the you can do explanation, right? So that when the facts are not supported, when the facts do not support the explanations, then we say that history, that piece of information should not be considered as historical. Right? So it should be by facts. So because facts is concerned, and two cannot descend from the sky. So they will buy the interpretation that the stool was meted by the danger as a draft. Then the Ashantis conquered the danger, picked the draft, remelted it into a stool, and that's the golden stool. That's the interpretation that they will buy. Because that makes sense. That can be done anywhere in the world. But to tell him that the thing came from the sky doesn't make sense. And that is objectivity. I bet, is it clear now?
Yes, Doc. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, to go further, is it proper, for instance, indicates that to give a causal explanation to a certain event means to derive deductively a statement which describes the event using a premise of the deductions, some universal laws together with certain singular or specific sentences which may call initial conditionings. So it's like the sciences is using logic, right? Logic to explain historical occurrences. So if the thing is not logical, if it doesn't follow the universal way of thinking, the objective way of attaining information, it's a deductively. That means that from general to specific, if it doesn't follow that format, the objective historian or the, what's the name, positive historians will reject such conclusions. He said it is not historic. So therefore, this kind of explanations becomes an instance of a general rule that gives certain initial conditions. An event in similar situations would also happen. The idea introduced the element of prediction. The implications of the covering law model of explanation for history teacher is that after classifying events, teach from general to specific. That is the deductive approach. So the thing have to make sense. You have to follow some logic, right? We have to have premise as it is done in logical reasoning before a positive historian would agree to some explanation. Otherwise, he say it is unhistoric because it is unscientific, and therefore it is subjective. And if it's subjective, they, the positive historians, will reject such explanations. Any question to this point? Hello?
Hi, Doc.
However, there are some historians that also don't agree with this, because some historical incidents do not follow the general law principle. And Louis VI is one. We say, for instance, Louis VI died unpopular because he pursued detrimental policies, or that Nkrumah died popular but pursued detrimental policies. You see that it is like contradicting. If you are making an assumption that Louis VI died because some of the decisions that he made was detrimental, wasn't helpful to the people, so at the time of his death, he was unpopular, then how come Nkrumah died popular, yet he pursued policies that are seen as detrimental, like the Detentions Act, trying to make Ghana one-party state? But yet Nkrumah was the man of the century. Hello?
Hi, Doctor. We are here.
The point we are making is that it is not all incidents that we can use it as a rule to judge others. Like we say that, okay, lecture method is a bad method or strategy for teaching. We all agree that lecture method is bad.
No.
Hello?
It has some, no. It has some benefits.
Yes. But you see,
especially when teaching large class.
at times too, it depends on who is lecturing. There are some teachers, if they lecture, you will still enjoy the class. You still follow the argument. There are others, if they start to lecture, you will sleep. So we cannot conclude that lecture method is bad. Also, the term depends on what the learning outcome, the class size, the topic that the teacher wants to teach. All these will determine whether lecture is good or bad teaching strategy. Do you get a point you are making?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yes, Doc.
So the question then is, can one accept the fact that leadership who pursue detrimental policies die unpopular? It's not true. It was their leaders that pursued detrimental policies, but they died very popular. Do you think today, if you do a survey in Libya to ask them whether Gaddafi was a bad leader or a good leader, what do you think the outcome will be?
A good leader.
A good leader. Because they had free education, free utilities. At times, even accommodation to the citizens was free. Now they don't have electricity. They don't have free education. But they have a semblance of democracy. Hello?
So,
Hi, Doc.
So at times it depends on who there are individual differences. That is why history cannot be solely objective. Now, let's look at the other side. That is the idealist. These are some examples of historians that are considered as idealists. You can read some of their works and see why we say they are idealists. So they argue that historical explanation does not involve any causal law, but rather the reasons for which key figures in history acted as they did, the reasons which need not to be reducible to cause. So they are of the view that the historian's job is not to get any law which we have to compare from country to country or from individual to country. The historian's goal is to understand the reason behind why people acted the way that they did. And those reasons do not amount to loss. Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Why people did certain things, if you learn it, it doesn't become a law that everybody should follow same. There are people who are leaders. They may appear to be laissez-faire leaders. They will be effective. There are others that may appear to be democratic, but may not be effective. So you are learning the successes and failures of those leaders, not to learn laws which will guide our choices, but to understand why they did what they did, to inform our choices. So it is not a law unto us, but it shapes how we do our things. Is it clear, or you are a bit confused? Hello?
Oh, please, can you go over?
I'm saying that, let's say we are learning heroes and heroines of our time. We are assessing their decisions and inactions. I really say that those things that we are learning, our goal is not to generate laws to guide our choices, but they become something like insight for us to decide on what we want to do going forward. If it's a law, it means that if A did A did B, then all of us should do B. But all of us are not A for us to do B. And the circumstances also change. But we want to understand the reasoning behind some of the choices and inactions of those people so that it guides, not a law, it guides our choices. Let me break it down. When you are a child and you look up to your father for leadership, for guidance, how your father chose to live his life may not necessarily become your rules. At times, your father might, let's say, if your father is a drunkard, it doesn't mean that you also end up being a drunkard. At times, you can learn from the ailment that your father suffered in his old age, and you will decide that because of that, I will not drink at all. That will be somebody's conclusion. Another person is, okay, my father drank excessively. Me, I'll be a social drinker. Another person will look at the father and say that, after all, we'll die anyway. So my father drank, but he enjoyed life, and I also enjoy life. Come what may. That is how human beings are. So you can find that if you have, let's say, 3 or 4 siblings in the house, you experience the same parenting, but your choices in life will differ. So your brother can be completely your opposite, but you all have the same experience, grew up by the same parents. Is this familiar to some of you? Hello?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So, for the idealist, he's saying that it does not necessarily be from the natural sciences, which are concerned with abstraction. We are dealing with human beings. So human beings, they differ. For one group, if you are a dictator, you might be successful. For another group, if you are a dictator, you fail. Why? Because they are not the same people. They are different. And their reactions to your actions and inactions also differ. Right? But in the sciences, because the sciences deals with inanimate organisms, matter, they don't have choices, but human beings have choice. We have free will. So you cannot apply natural science laws to human beings. Because human beings, we reason, we change over time. And we say since laws govern classes or types of things, and since history events are unique, it is not possible for the historian to explain his subject matter via governing laws. To the idealist, the assumption that history occurs could be subsumed under and explained in terms of universal laws was, in their opinion, a gross error. Why? Because you think that every historical incident is different and unique. And therefore, it is that uniqueness that we should study. The idealists simply discard the autonomy of history. They declare the autonomy of history, claiming that history has no dealings so with general laws, and yet explain his subject matter quite satisfactorily in their own ways. So Oakeshott emphasized that in inexhaustible peculiarities, the uniqueness of historic events represent history's explanation as simply a full account of change. So this view is that we are not studying history, we are not explaining history under any determined law, but we want to explain historical events as they occur in history. And our goal is to understand how history has remained the same or has changed over time without necessarily coming up with laws. Is it clear?
Yes, though.
So, and why they are saying that is that they are saying that history is not a science. So if it's not a science, we don't have to worry ourselves about formulating any laws. What we should do is that we should try to understand history from the perspective of the characters that are involved, right? And that is enough. So they will term them as practical historians. They contend that there is no such thing as following general laws in historical explanation. Event, unless there are exceptions in the law, historians follow. And the historians will follow what they term as historical methodology, which gives room for imagination and multidisciplinary collaborations. But when we are talking about the sciences, we are talking about exactions predictions, which is opposite of the historical method. Is that okay?
Yes, Doc.
Hello?
Hi, Doctor.
Doc, I'm here.
Okay. So the advice is that we should adopt a unique model of teaching history where the focus is on the individual event, right? So you cannot be comparing what is happening in Parliament now to what happened previously. Because the characters, the people that are in parliament now, are different from the ones that were in the, we are in the, is it a 9th parliament now? Or 8th? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello, Doc. Those who are doing political science, you people should answer this question, please.
What do you mean those are these political science? Huh? The Fourth Republic first was 1992. From 1992 to 1996, it was 2 parliaments. So today, how many parliament do we have? Parliamentary sessions do we have? Hey.
Doc,
we are in the ninth parliament.
We're in the 9th parliament.
Yes, Doc.
So the 9th parliament is entirely different from the 8th parliament. The 8th parliament, NEC had 136, MBP had 137. The difference was 1.
Hang parliament, yes.
It was a hang parliament. The parliament now, NEC has what they term as a super majority, which means that there are certain things that the NEC government can do now, which the MBP government could not do in the previous parliament, because the numbers have changed. Beside the numbers, the speaker is part of government. In the 8th parliament, the speaker was part of the opposition. That aside, the 8th parliament, the president was Adobe. The 9th parliament, the president is who? Mahama. And the 2 individuals are different. Right? So we cannot make those comparisons. So let's try to learn the reasons for the successes and failures of each parliamentary session by looking at the merits and demerits of the system of that particular parliament without necessarily making comparisons. So because of that, the emphasis of teaching should focus on the unique aspect of each event or happenings, since the purpose of history explanation is to clarify, is to highlight the uniqueness of each individual or event, rather than teaching events in relation to others by virtue of the similarities they bear. So for idealists, the thing is idealist. So they believe that history is not a science, it is an art. History involves human beings, and human beings are unique. And therefore, there shouldn't be any need for us to try to form certain laws to explain happenings. What we should do is to study every event, every historical occurrences on its own merits, and then assess its strengths and weaknesses based on the facts that are available to us, without necessarily making comparisons. Any questions? Hello?
Hello.
Any question? Hello? Any question?
I think Emmanuel W has raised his hand.
Okay. Please go ahead and talk. Hello?
Emmanuel Yao W.
Hello? Ima, do you want to ask a question? Anybody who wants to
Please,
ask a
I think it's a mistake, so I don't know.
Okay. Ima? Anybody who wants to ask a question, you are free to do so. Hello? Okay.
Dog, I think Nime's own will be a mistake, or probably he has not muted his mic.
Okay. So what have we said so far? What we are saying is that historians generalize. They generalize because the facts are many, and therefore he cannot consider all the facts in making or trying to explain historical incidents and events. So generalization is part of the work that a historian does. But the caveat is that if you are generalizing as a historian, you should try as much as possible to base your generalizations on the facts. Let the facts guide your ultimate generalization so that it is not skewed in favor of one group or one concept. And then the generalization helps the historian to explain historical facts, because the facts cannot speak for themselves. It is the historian that gives the facts a voice, so to speak. In doing that, there are two schools of thoughts as to how the historian should explain history. There is the positive view, and then there is the idealist view. The positive view is that history is a science and therefore should be objective. The historian should let the mere speculations of the facts. The idealists, on the other hand, are saying that the historian need not concern himself with trying to achieve objectivity. Why? Because absolute in history, the facts that you choose to make any interpretation of, the facts that you select, the selection itself is born out of some assumption that you have in your mind. The fact that you would even get, it is not all the fact that you can represent in your findings. Therefore, the historian should concern himself with trying to present any historical issue or event in the best possible way possible, trying for us to understand its pros and cons without necessarily establishing laws, which becomes a guide to compare to other interpretations of other scholars. That is all that we said this evening. Is it clear?
Dog.
Yeah. So if it's clear and there are no questions, we can end our class here. Ernest.
Yes, doctor.
Do you have a question?
No, please.
Okay. So if there are no questions, we'll end the class here. And God willing, we'll continue when?
Next week.
Next week.
Saturday evening, 5 p.m.
Okay. So as usual, I'll put the slides on your page. Please download them and start reading. If you don't understand anything, jot them down. Before we start next week's class, you can ask me and I'll clarify the point for you. Is that okay?
Okay, Doc.
Okay, Doc.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
Okay,
much.
Doc. Okay, Doc.
You should all graduate well.
Thank you.
Everybody should have an A or a B plus at least.
God bless
No.
you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Doc.
God bless
So, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Wishing
Ima, you are back.
Now the day is over.
Okay, good night.
Wish you the same, Doc. Bye bye.
Bye.